reactive, and how much does it incentivize liquidity provisioning, or how reactive is it to demand in the market? So with the biggest stablecoin by like, I don't know, feel like it's an order of magnitude, but maybe less. USDT, it's just liquidity. They just have tons of liquidity, and you can get in and out of positions with no slippage, and you more or less trust that some amount of money is in a bank account there, in BVI or wherever else. So it works.
So I guess the way I think about this is so I think the overall dominant effects are like liquidity, number of venues that you have access to for a stable coin, all of these things. But I do think this question of capital efficiency also represents like a pretty big and important piece in the sort of stablecoin market. It does seem like if we can make a stablecoin that is sort of backed by the robust future cash flows of some proof of stake asset that is running sort of as intended, it will be much more capital efficient than locking up like large amounts of capital in like just like a savings account in a bank account, the way USDC works. So there's that. And I guess what's sort of interesting and exciting about Terra to me is like they're one of the first projects to really start experimenting with this architecture.
Great. So we're actually running pretty close to end of our time. So I'm going to try to basically conclude with one question, kind of an overall risk question, asking about the risks that users are taking, because obviously there's no free lunch in these capital efficiency types of things. And I think the last thing is maybe to say something about the Interchain Asset Association, which all three of you are a part of. So, I think I've spent a bunch of time personally thinking about this and writing kind of this paper with Alex Evans on how to try to quantify risk and try to measure whether things are capital efficient or whether there's inequality in systems that have staking derivatives. But when you're building these systems, you have to think about the users who maybe let's pretend they're comfortable using Maker or Compound, which is not, even then that's a very select set of users who are comfortable understanding when they get liquidated, under what conditions kind of they need to move their assets or go top up their collateral. In the staking derivative world, it's even much more complicated. You have the intertwining of price action with future cash flow changes due to getting slashed, due to other conditions that are related to correct participation in these networks. So how do you make the UX of risk palatable to the end user? Because I think this is one of the reasons Compound has grown so much, is that they have figured out a much simpler UX than Maker and other participants for sort of at least kind of managing your risk. So, how do you guys think about it, both from the validator and like the savings account holder perspective?
So one of the things that I think is potentially good about all of this is, in general, I think validators are like sort of under-differentiated from the point of view of staking right now. And some protocols are trying to optimize for like making validators sort of this nameless, brandless, undifferentiated like network functionality. But that's never been really my vision for what validators should be. I feel like validators should be like a fairly I do think that, I would like to see more differentiation, and I would, I think I would generally like to see like sort of, stuff like this may create like a rating agency for validators that I think actually would probably be would be net healthy for the economy, and also potentially helpful in sort of allowing validators to more effectively compete against the exchanges. So that's one aspect of it. I think that, yes, I think your observation about, having good UX around risk being very important to the success of any of these instruments is important. And so there's like, in general, these like information resources that potentially need to happen. But also I think it will be, it will help inform, like, as we work with the Interchain Assets Association on, you know, the design of Anchor and the evolution of Anchor to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and some of the things we talked about earlier, like liquidity is the UX thing, like how much slippage there is when you can get in and out of positions. But yeah, Compound's done a great job of that, and I think it's critical for like any system that's serious about staking derivatives to get that right, to make it easy to create the B asset and kind of the anchor land, like. What hoops do you have to go through to get that, and then exactly to ruin like what's the trust guarantees or how do the users feel about the potential for loss under a slashing event or a different circumstance like that. And so yeah, really curious to see how that pans out.
I think this is an excellent question, and I fully agree with what Zaki and Jack just said. So I think on the one hand, when it comes to education and information, I think the Interchain Asset Association can serve a key role in making sure there's enough education, the risks are discussed, and sort of everyone understands that there is significant upside in this technology, but it is definitely very young, and so we're still figuring out exactly how it will become robust. The second piece is that I think until we get to the point where both the systems have been proven to be quite robust, faith in their functionality, developing is quite key and something that we've been thinking about in a few dimensions. So yeah, without getting into too much detail, I think insurance, both from a slashing standpoint as well as on the liquidation side, is quite key. And so there's always a trade-off, right, between risk and capital efficiency. And I think that potentially in the beginning, it makes sense to sacrifice some capital efficiency in order to have those systems well insured, and then over time sort of give up.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So, you know, all three of you mentioned the Interchain Asset Association, and so I know we're out of time, but maybe could each of you maybe give a tweet what you would say about your protocol's participation and sort of what you're excited about with it. And it's cool to see kind of different chains working together towards the same goal.
I would say that generally, I think like very much on the top of mind for Cosmos, for Atom holders, is really now that, like, you know, we're on the verge of having an interchain, like the interchain that we imagined when we started working on Cosmos, and with things like Polkadot launching, starting to figure out what is the role of atoms in this ecosystem, and so that's a big part of why I'm like sort of participating in the Interchain Asset Association, is to you know, eventually find is to start working on this process of comparative advantage for the Atom token and like what it does in a world of many blockchains.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Polkadot is the basic thesis is the world's going to have multiple chains. It's going to be a polychain future. There's going to be chains for different things, from banking to music to finance, to all these things. So we're excited to work with Terra. Definitely excited to work more with Cosmos, using the technology that some of the developer teams straddling different cross-chain ecosystems are building, like the bridges and so forth. And yeah, I'd say the major thing is I don't think we've seen the power of cross-chain because, right, like Cosmos and Polkadot really haven't built it yet. And as those ecosystems get built out, I think we're going to see the power of cross-chain stable coins that can leverage, right, the biggest capital base in the world for crypto, which is Bitcoin, having trustless bridges to Bitcoin, having trustless bridges to Ethereum. In between these cross-chain ecosystems, I think the future looks much more like a web than these siloed individual kind of centers. So I think Terra seems to be on the cutting edge of these developments, and I think it's also a testament to people's change in mindset when they approach building software and crypto. It seems to be much less tribalistic than it was even 6 months, 12 months ago. It's just people making pragmatic decisions about the best software for their solutions. And I think this Anchor is an example of that. So we're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'll keep it concise. In my mind, I think it comes down to having well thought out research as well as governance around how those new technologies will evolve. And yeah, as I think has been a trend in AI, the question around what future do we want here, and how do we plan it in a way that doesn't surprise us with the emergent properties we haven't thought about in advance. I think very much so with DeFi and proof of stake and stake derivatives, the motivation is very similar. And so honored to work with guys like Saki and Jack. And I think as we expand this association, our ability to think through the challenges as well as increase collaboration to make sure that this ecosystem ends up where we want it to be, as opposed to some version that has much more risk than we wanted to. I think that's the key idea.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and hopefully you can ask any of these guys questions on Twitter, presumably. Or if you want to say how best to contact you.
Twitter's great.
Great.
Yeah, at ZMonion on Twitter.
Works.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a Q&A after.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks.
Take care, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you guys so much for that discussion and engaged Q&A, Zaki, Jack, Tarun, and Nick. And with that, we are finished with our content for day one. So thank you all so much for coming to make Unitize Global Leaders US and Asia edition so successful. We really can't wait to show you the rest of the amazing content we have planned for the week. I just want to give a huge thanks to the Block Show team, the AV team, and the rest of the San Francisco Blockchain Week team who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to host the content that you all enjoyed today. So as a reminder to all attendees, the developer workshops are going to be starting at 10 a.m. UTC Tuesday, which is either tomorrow or maybe even today, depending on where you're located. Those are going to be held by Bruno from the Web3 Foundation, followed by workshops from Terra, C Labs, OP Games, and Informal Systems. Then starting at 4 p.m. UTC, we will begin Unitize Regulatory Day with our amazing co-host James Cooper from California Western School of Law and Dan Spuller of the North Carolina Blockchain Initiative. We have some amazing speakers, including SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce, CFTC Chairman Heath Tarbert, Chris Giancarlo, and quite a few others discussing topics ranging from central bank digital currencies to global regulation. I will also be hosting a special fireside chat with recent presidential candidate Brock Pierce, so definitely tune in to see that. So once again, a special thanks to our amazing sponsors, Bybit, Crypto.com, and Terra, just to name a few. We couldn't have done it without the support of you and your teams, as well as our many co-hosts and community partners who we could not have put this all together without. So everyone who attended, go ahead and get some rest, and I hope to see you all soon.